Hey everyone, welcome to EverydayFI, the show that explores the lives of everyday people on the path to financial independence so you can use these stories to forge your own journey to financial freedom. I'm your host, Meghan Combs, and today is part one with my friend Robin, who I met at CampFI in 2022. In this episode, we share our experiences with carpooling to CampFI and the meaningful connections we made there. Robin discusses her upbringing in an off-the-grid geodesic dome home in Virginia, her journey into early childhood education, and the inspiration behind launching an outdoor-focused nature preschool. Emphasizing the importance of strategic thinking and community support, Robin shares insights from her journey to entrepreneurship, highlights the value of intentional financial planning, and reflects on the lessons learned from her parents' approach to money. We engage in a heartfelt conversation about the significance of a stable home and the various paths to financial independence. Tune in to hear part one of Robin's story after we hear from our sponsors. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I have my good friend Robin on, who I know from CampFI. We went to CampFI, our first times were 2022 with actually Alan Valentine, who his episode came out in, what month is this? In February, right? Or was it January? Yeah. Anyway, I'll link his episode. Robin, Alan, and I all were at CampFI together in 2022, and I saw Robin last year at CampFI in 2024. And yeah, we're good friends. And I've been struggling to not ask her questions because I want her to tell me stuff. But Robin, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then we can, talk about what I want to talk about.
Sure. Perfect. Yay. Well, thanks for having me on, Meghan. It's really great to be here and to just see your beautiful face on the call. And so my first CampFI was 2022, same as yours. And I was in a carload of people I had never met before. I'm in Central Virginia, just outside Charlottesville. I connected with someone in Richmond to carpool to CampFI Mid-Atlantic in Virginia. And this was 2022. And so met this person, Emily, at their house in Richmond. Then we went to pick up Alan from the train station in Richmond. So he had taken the train up from Florida. And then we picked up another new friend from the airport who had flown in from Texas. So it was all four of us, never met before. And we're all just jump in a car together and drive from Richmond to the CampFI location, which it wasn't that far of a drive. I don't even know, maybe an hour. We were chatting and getting to know each other. And it was a blast. It was so fun. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to, just immediately start meeting new FI friends, like right off the bat before we even got to the event. So that was awesome. That was a really good way and then I met you there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because I also carpooled with people the first time I came. One was with Monica, who I recorded an episode with. I'll put hers in the show notes as well. And literally did not realize it was her until the end of the episode. And I was like, I knew you felt familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just because we hadn't seen each other since then. So it was Monica, and then it was Justin from Root of Good, who lives here in Raleigh. And then my friend Lou as well, who I knew through, so random, but I was doing like TaskRabbit cleaning, and I think I met him when we were doing like the 5 meetup groups, and he was like, can you clean my house? And I was like, sure. And so I started doing house cleaning for him and his family while I was like doing side hustles. Yeah. And so we all carpooled together. It was so much fun.
It's so
I love carpooling.
Yeah, it's so funny, the connections that happen. So I also met a friend at that first CampFI. We became closer at the next one at 2023. And then he ended up being my roommate he moved from Northern Virginia he just was going through transition and needed just to figure out what was the next spot. And he ended up being my roommate for 6 months here. He moved in here at my house, and it was amazing. And then we carpooled, of course, to CampFI. Just like all the connections that happened has been so fun, and I'm excited to keep doing them because I'll be there this year. That'll be my fourth one in a row. Yeah.
So are you going to the Mid-Atlantic one, or are you going to the Spain? Okay.
Haha, no, I wish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just? Sorry. Yeah, I won't be at the Mid-Atlantic. I'm going to Spain.
Someday for sure.
I hope Stephen does it again.
Oh my gosh, I would love to do that one. No, Mid-Atlantic. Since I'm in Central Virginia, it's so easy to just bop over there from here. I don't remember, but an hour, 2 hours maybe. So it's very yeah, it's very convenient. And I know some folks really love to travel around to all the different ones. My life right now isn't set up in that type of way. I'm pretty tied to home, which I love. I wouldn't actually have it any other way. And we'll talk more about that. But yeah, so right now my life is pretty home based, pretty set up here. So just knowing that it's on my calendar every year, once a year, is like, all right, I got this to look forward to. Go see old friends, meet new friends at Mid-Atlantic. And it's a big thing that I look forward to on my schedule every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me more about you, though, for our listeners. I know about you, but tell me more about what your career is, your family setup, where you live. You alluded to where you live already, all of that stuff. Tell us more there.
Sure. Well, family setup, I grew up pretty unconventional. I was homeschooled and raised in a off-the-grid geodesic dome home in Spotsylvania County in Virginia. My parents are a bit of hippies, and yeah, so they built a dome, like a geodesic dome from a kit, and set up solar panels and a composting toilet and built a barn. And my childhood was spent running around in the woods and playing with the animals. So yeah, not conventional, but of course, whatever you grow up with, you think that's normal. You're just like, oh, this is my life. I'm a kid living. Isn't this how it just is? And then later, like growing up, I look back and be like, oh, wait a second. That wasn't typical necessarily. Or as our world expands, yeah, realize, oh, that was a little different. And I will say, and of course, nothing's perfect. There were flaws, downsides, but overall, I'm very grateful that I had that childhood because it definitely informs what I do now, which is that I run an outdoor focused nature preschool out of my home, which has been a big journey and actually one that the FI community and specifically folks from CampFI Mid-Atlantic have been hugely instrumental in just from encouraging, checking in about it, how's it been going, to make the leap from, I was working in mostly early childhood programs, working for other folks, working in forest schools, working at preschools. I have done a lot of nannying as well. And to go from that and make the leap from working for other people to be fully self-employed. This year is my first year as being fully self-employed. I had launched kind of a side part-time thing in 2022, actually. It's a big year. There was a lot going on that year. So yeah, I launched the school part-time then, and then yeah, has worked towards growing and going full-time with it. So this year has been amazing. It's been a ton of work and it's been the best. It's been the best work that I could possibly be doing. There's nothing else. Yeah, there's nowhere else I would want to be. And it's just been awesome. And to see that, get to be in that process and watch it unfold as I'm in it, and to get the encouragement from folks from the FI community. Like I think it was that first 2022 CampFI. I talked with somebody at one of the meals. We have big group communal meals, and I do want to give a shout out to Stephen for the name game. I know that people give him a hard time for the name game at CampFI, but I think that creates such a, Stephen Boyer, the fellow who founded and runs the CampFIs, I think it just adds so much because by the first day, you know everyone's name. And that for me helped me feel so much more comfortable and willing to just sit down at a table with a bunch of people that I didn't know, but at least I knew their name and I could recognize their face and I could it was just made it easier. So shout out to Stephen for keeping the name game going. I love it. And
yeah, I actually really appreciated it. We didn't do it this last year, right? Because I don't think Stephen was here, and we
wait, did
right,
we all? I thought we did it, but we split it into two groups. My group, we didn't do a name game. We just went around the circle and we introduced ourselves and gave like some details, but it wasn't. So for anybody who hasn't been to a CampFI, doesn't know what the name game is, it's basically the first person, I think, and let me know if I get this wrong, Robin, but I think it's like the first person says their name and then the next person has to say that person's name and then their name, and then the next person has to say the first two names and then their name, and it just goes around in the circle. And it's actually incredibly effective. Yes.
You would be amazed because it's just like repetition. Basically. And so everybody really remembers those first few names. You want to be that first person.
And I really do think it's a big part of why that community feels so easy to plug into and so comfortable, and like you're already quote unquote one of the family in a way, due to that, just I think the intentionality of how Stephen sets it up. So I appreciate that. So was just plopping down at a meal with somebody, chatting, and I met someone who I talked with about my idea for the business and the school. And I don't know if he realizes how much encouragement he gave me, just, saying some things that basically told me like he thinks that I can do it and have the qualities of a successful entrepreneur. And I was like, what? Nobody had ever told me that before. And I had never thought of myself in that way before, ever. And I trusted that he knew what he was talking about because he's run businesses, worked with people, been around entrepreneurship, is one himself. And the fact that, he was like, no, yep, you can do this. You've got the qualities, you've got the passion, you can do it. I was like, oh, So just having people to recognize.
Yeah. Do you remember who that was?
Robert Chase.
Chase. Okay. So Robert Chase, you've changed Robin's life.
Pretty much.
If you're listening.
And many other folks. But that conversation was, it was huge because nobody had ever recognized that in me before, or said, I think you can do this. And I know what I'm talking about. Like, we're talking from experience. I could really trust that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for the preschool come from? What was the inspiration behind that?
So looking back to my childhood, my early years were spent running around in the woods, building stick forts with my sister, playing in the creek. My dad was pretty into just a sort of a general naturalist. I had tons of field guides, bird, insect, plant field guides. And he also really enjoyed foraging for mushrooms. So he would take me out just looking for morel mushrooms every spring. And just that, like, nature immersion truly is, I think, whatever you grow up with, it just feels like normal. That's what you do. But it is such a part, like, in my bones of who I am now, like that connection to a place early on and being like knowing the woods so well, like knowing certain places and having names for certain places. There's a spot in the creek that we called the Deep Place, but it definitely was a capital D, capital P. It was the Deep Place. Like different things like that, where you just, the more time you spend in a place and have time to explore and get to know it, it just becomes, for me, it became a real part of who I am, and like my internal landscape. It will always be there inside me no matter where I go. And I can't imagine not having that. And so in college, I started working at a preschool. My degree is in creative writing. My undergrad degree is in creative writing, but I started working at a preschool that was right near the college and really loved it. And then also worked at a nature-based summer camp for many, many years. That also changed my life and put me on just a path towards where I am now. And so taking the foundation of my childhood and just how important that has been to me, and then realizing, oh, wait, I actually really love working with kids. I'm really good at it. I think I really understand them very well. And from there, I realized, oh, I think this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to work with kids in some capacity, probably my whole life. And then it's just been a journey of figuring out what that looks like. And then I don't know. This is like a whole, I don't know. I don't want to take up the whole podcast with this story.
No, I want to hear more because I have more follow-up questions. So please continue. But no, I'm going to ask you some more.
Edit a lot of it might be course. And then, so I just kept working with kids. I worked at an after-school program right after college. And then I worked at a program when I lived in Asheville, North Carolina, that was, very nature immersion, nature-based learning for more elementary school age kids, but I helped them launch one day a week that was a preschoolers program. And that was in 2014. And it was that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. It was forest preschool, kids outside. It was 4 and 5-year-olds mostly out in the woods. It was just the one day a week, but that something clicked. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I need to figure out a way to do it full time and financially sustainably, because in that world, in the outdoor education world and in the early childhood world, pay is not good. And in fact, with the more nature-based stuff, it's a lot of part-time seasonal. It's not even full-time work a lot of the time. So that was it. I had that one day a week I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Okay, how do I find a way to do this full-time, not part-time and seasonal, and in a way that can financially sustain me and the future that I want? And so that was 2014. And so it was pretty much, a 10-year journey from there to really taking seriously my own business and going for it. For years, I thought maybe someday I will open my own. But the running the business end of things, the admin side of things, like that had intimidated me for a long time because I saw how hard the folks that I worked for worked. Like I saw how hard it was to be the program director, to be the admin person, to be emailing the parents, doing the billing, doing all of that. And what I loved was being with the kids. And I want to be out in the woods with the kids. I don't want to be in an office behind a computer emailing about enrollment, which is hilarious because that's exactly what I was doing yesterday. Sending out the enrollment contracts for next year. But I have learned that actually a lot of it I enjoy. I've learned a ton. I've learned that I really like doing the bookkeeping. Who knew? There's stuff I don't like about the admin side. Like I just despise emailing and I think I always will. And there's a lot of it, but it's worth it to be able to do what I love and to do what I'm good at, to have incredibly meaningful work and to be able to do it in a way that ultimately will be financially sustainable. Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I feel like there's something else I was going to say.
Okay. I can ask you some follow-up questions and see if anything piques your memory. But it's so amazing how you, even though your degree was in creative writing, you jumped into this world and then you just knew it was for you. And I love that because, and I will say I'm a little envious because I still struggle with what do I want to do? I haven't had this moment unless you count the podcast, which, you know,
yeah.
Nobody usually does a podcast as a job unless it's sold to a big company. It's just not a thing. And I don't mind that. But yeah, I've struggled to have this moment in something that I could do full time and make money that I could live off of. So I really envy that for you and I congratulate you on that. And I guess what I want to know is a few things because there was so much there. Are you to a point or will ever get to a point where you think you could hire like an admin person? I know that I was just interviewing Bill Yount from Catching Up to Fi, and I was just editing his episode actually just before this call. And he has somebody who I think works in the Philippines that's relatively inexpensive. And so I wondered if maybe you could get like an admin there. Have you ever considered that? So that's one question, and I have more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks for just acknowledging and saying that I feel super lucky to have found to just know this is it. This is it. There's really nothing else. And I do feel lucky for that because I remember at the first CampFI too, and I hear it all the time, people who have worked a job and some of their FI why is because they want to get the hell out of that job because it's not for them. It's not what and then they get to FI and then they're like, oh, now, wait, what do I even? Having that sort of late in 40s or whenever arriving at, I don't even know what I like. And I think my path to FI is definitely going to be slower because, working in early childhood, even though my business is reaching financial sustainability, and that's so exciting, and it's reaching profitability, and it's amazing. And I run the numbers of here's how many kids, how much I need to charge for tuition. Okay, here's how much I'm working towards setting aside every month for saving and investments. And with what I've got charted out, and life happens, you never really know how some things are going to turn, but what I've got charted out has me reaching FI in my mid 50s, which is great. I'm fine. I'm good with that because I get to do what I love in the meantime. I'd rather do that than work a job that I hate and then be FI when I'm 40 and be like, now what? So I do feel lucky. I feel really lucky in that I have that. I just have that knowing of the direction of, yep, this is it. And who knows? I don't know that I'll want to do this for the next 20 years. It's very active and there's a lot of bending and lifting and it works great for now. My kind of minimum is I want to run this program for at least minimum 5 years and then see. I'm hopeful. I feel positive that it'll probably be at least 10 that I'll want to keep doing this. And then by then, who knows? Maybe I'll say, that was great. Okay, time to pivot somewhat. Maybe I'll do, I don't know, coaching other teachers and folks who want to open their own nature-based school. There are folks who do that, and I really admire them and would be excited to be able to contribute to that, the growth of the outdoor education for young children movement. And so we'll see. I don't know what the future brings, but I plan to do this for a good long while And yeah, and it's working. As far as hiring admin, yes, that's a goal for at some point. I would love to hire a part-time admin assistant. I haven't, yeah, it's not on the horizon right now. I'm just working on getting the systems up and running, figuring out what even are my systems. How is it financially sustainable with just me? Because I do know, so I am a licensed through the state of Virginia, the Department of Education. They come do inspection. They show up unannounced and just check that I've got all my paperwork is done. They check that my hot water is the correct temperature. Like they get in there with their little thermometer so that it's not over 120 degrees. Like they check all the things, safety things. And so technically I'm licensed to enroll up to 12 children. Now I'm absolutely not going to have 12 children, certainly not by myself. And I don't know if I ever really want that because it is a solo operation. It's just me. It's out of my home and I love it. And that's how I want it for now. If I wanted to expand, I could hire a co-teacher and expand the number of children enrolled. The hiring an admin assistant may be a bit trickier because I would love the help and I could really use it, but it would be an expense without additional income because if I hire a co-teacher, I can enroll more kids and have more of the tuition money coming in. If I hire an admin assistant, I can't have any more kids. I'm not sure. I haven't quite figured out how
Could
that
you maybe with the co-teacher have that person do some of the admin as well and be that part of their job?
That's a thought. Yeah. And I'm holding that loosely as for a someday thing to explore. My main goal is just get super solid in my current format, get my systems down, just get things really flowing in a really great way. And then to go deeper into all the intricacies of, do I really want to hire someone? Because I also know that comes with, then you have to manage another adult. I'm great with managing the kids. Managing another adult's a different story. Finding somebody qualified, and then the financial aspect of, then you're an employer, the employer taxes and the pay. So I just know there's a lot more complexity there and things to explore before I would ever make a decision one way or the other. I would really want to get very informed on what that would mean for me if I decide, yes, I'm going to become an employer. Now I'm responsible for, how do I do the unemployment taxes? I just do, then now there's tax, I have to give them a W-2, like all the things. So it's definitely a possibility, but it's nothing I'm looking into right now. But I would be delighted to have help with the admin. Part of me thinks maybe I could find somebody who is already retired and wants to have something super part-time who could, do some of the admin stuff, computer work, and then also help me out a little bit with nap time, because that's the trickiest part is solo nap time with 5, 6 toddlers is sometimes can be a little hairy. It's mostly fine. It's great. But having an extra person around for just that transition into nap would be great. So yeah, there's possibilities. We'll see.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can see where that person at CampFI said that you have the entrepreneurial mindset, because in how you're talking about this, it's not just passion I'm seeing and hearing. I'm seeing that you are thinking things through and you have iterations in mind, to use a tech industry term, which is really smart. And so I love that. And good for you.
Thanks. I am a pretty strategic thinker. Like I'm pretty thorough, and I do like to really, like when I want to do something, I want to do it. And it took me 10 years from realizing, oh, this is what I want to do. Okay, how am I going to do it? I'm a slow percolator. So I'm like, okay, maybe I do want to do that. Okay, how would that work? Blah, blah, blah. And I just really, I like to really think through things and just be intentional, because once I do it, if it's something I care about and once I do it, I want to do it. And of course, there's going to be mistakes and you learn as you go and you can't be perfect. I mean, so at some point you just have to go for it and see what happens. But I do enjoy that strategic element of thinking through and trying to consider, what are the puzzle pieces? What are the connections? How would this affect that? If I brought that in, how would that sort of, I do a lot of that thinking. So thanks. I think,
Yeah. I have one more question about this, and then we can move on to your money origin story. But so how do you market this? How did you get those enrollments from the kids? Was it parents you already
Yeah.
knew? Do you like sign up for bulletin boards? I don't know. And
Yeah.
I'm asking this mainly for if there's somebody listening who wants to do something similar
Hmm.
or related,
Yeah.
maybe they could learn from what you've done.
Yep. It's mostly been word of mouth because I have lived in this area for 10 years at this point, and I've been in the early childhood world in various settings, preschools, forest schools, nannying. People do know me, and my name does come up at this point when folks are talking, oh, I'd really like to find a nature-based program. Oh, have you heard of Robin, blah, blah, blah. So that is a huge just benefit of being in one place and being known in the community. So mostly word of mouth. Yeah, my currently enrolled families are great about talking it up and telling other people about it because they're really happy with it. You know, it's a niche thing. We're outdoors almost the entire day. We're in the forest. We are climbing on logs, getting muddy, finding bugs, making mud pies, just learning. They're learning through play and learning through their senses every day. And there's specific families who really want that and really value that. And it's not for everybody. It's not the program to go to if someone's looking for more of a, okay, I want them to drill their numbers and their ABCs and stay clean. That's not me. That's not what we do. And yeah, we sing songs and they're learning and we're reading stories. So they're getting exposure to those pre-literacy skills and everything, but it's just so much more focused on just child-led play. They're exploring and gaining their sense of competence in their own selves and their bodies and building a sense of connection with nature early so that hopefully they will also have that in their bones forever. And even if they move to a city and if wherever life takes them, if they know from lived experience through their nervous system early on that if they're stressed, they can go find a tree and feel a little bit better, or they can put out a bird feeder and watch the birds coming, and that they can engage in find nature wherever they are, and that also having that connection and sense of care early often translates also into a sense of care later. And folks who want to help our little planet do okay and protect some of the natural spaces and give space for that for future generations to have that experience, nature immersion experience. So that's really important to me and to the families who are drawn to my program. And I do put up, I've created a little flyer postcard thing on Canva, and I put that up around some of the local coffee shops. I haven't had much, the folks who've reached out, I think I had one who reached out from those. So that hasn't been the most effective. But it also, people sometimes text me, just friends of mine are like, oh, I saw your thing up at the coffee shop. So it's out there, but it's mostly word of mouth. When I was nannying prior to launching, I actually would take the kids that I was nannying out to any of the sort of outdoorsy moms meetup groups. There's one called Hike It Baby, and we would go and hike at some of the local parks and everything and do what they call a toddler waddle down by the river. And so I would show up to all of those things because it was great for the kids and I enjoyed having other adults to talk to and just being out. So that, honestly, that was a good starting point too, because I built a lot of relationships through that. So when I was launching the pilot, there were folks who just, I had met out. There was one family who joined who I just met at the kids' swim lessons. We had gotten to chatting. So having those community connections, I think, has been the biggest thing. I have a Facebook page. That gets a fair bit of traffic now. I don't have a website yet still. That's at some point coming. But also because my program is super small, it's not like I have 50 spots to fill. I have 6 spots to fill. So I don't need huge, I'm not trying to reach a mass audience. I'm trying to reach the few families who specifically want what I have to offer, who specifically want an outdoor immersion experience for their young child, and who are going to be a great fit, and who are going to be able to, going to be okay with their kid coming home muddy. Yeah. So it's been fairly easy so far to find folks, but yeah, I think being involved in the community and just putting out what you have to offer in any and all of the channels pays off. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I know I said I was only going to ask one more question, but this is really so I know that Chris and I, my fiance, soon to be husband, would absolutely want our kids in something like this. And if we lived near you, we would totally use you, but we live in Durham. But I'm going to be looking for a program like this. How early?
I'll send you some. I know some.
Yes, please. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah, send me
Yeah.
some. And I'll link them in the show notes
Yeah.
and everything too, if anybody lives in this area. But how early do these programs accept kids? Like meaning how young, and then up what's the max age as well? Obviously, they're going to be starting school, so I guess that's the max age. But yeah,
it varies. I will say, in my experience, the majority of programs like this, outdoor focus, and also just preschools in general, often start at age 3 and require kids to be potty trained. My program starts at age 2, and I accept diaper wearers. I think that's an important piece for me because I've seen so many families stress to potty train, and because we have to do this or the kid can't go to school, and then the families have a tough experience, the kid has a stressful experience, and then like, why do we need to put them through that? I can handle a couple diapers, it's fine. So yeah, I start at age 2. So some start around 2, a lot start at 3. It would be unique to find a program, an outdoor focused program that accepts younger, but it's possible. I think there are some out there. But yeah, 2 is often probably the youngest. And I will say, for any families, and this is just childcare in general, not just only nature focused programs, but any families who think that they might be looking for something like this or needing childcare, the earlier you can start looking and getting on wait lists, the better, because most programs, have a wait list. Going on tours, getting a sense, meeting the care providers, getting to see the space and the environment will tell you a lot about the program and the quality that's put into it and what type of experience your kids will have. So getting on wait lists, going on tours, I think is really important, and doing that as early as possible, because it can sometimes be a year or more on a wait list of if there's a program you really want to get into. Yeah. So I officially enroll ages 2 to 4, mixed age. Currently, everyone who I have signed up just happens to be 2, which is great. I love it. And then, once they go off to kindergarten, then
that's awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you. And thank you for sending me those resources.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do know a few in your area, so I can send you this.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Let's switch over to talking about your money origin story. I love calling it that because it's almost like you're a superhero. You already talked a little bit about you lived in a dome kit home, which I'm sorry, but that just makes me think of that horrible Pauly Shore movie, Biodome. Did you ever see that?
Oh.
Oh my God. It's from the early, either late 90s or early 2000s.
Okay.
It's probably nothing like what you.
I'll have to look this up.
It's funny. It's funny. But anyway.
Do they live in a dome? Is that?
Yeah, they live in a dome. It's called Biodome, but it's not that they live there. It's that they go and visit. It's supposed to be like a scientific study habitat. And one of them is dating one of the scientists. Don't ask me why the scientist is dating one of them, but they are. And they go there to find her, and then they get locked in because they close it off for a year to do the study. And so they're all locked in, and they wreak havoc on the Biodome. And it's just it's so stupid. Pauly Shore movies are nostalgic for us 90s kids. But anyway, I digress. I would love to know, from that experience, what one of your earliest money specific memories are with your family.
Yeah. So specific memories around money. I remember having a piggy bank from a young age and really enjoying that. I've always enjoyed saving money, and that was, I had a piggy bank. I do remember when my mom took me to the bank, the actual bank, to open a checking and savings account, mostly savings account, I guess was the focus. When I was not that, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 maybe. And I remember at that time, they would give you a little paper, passbook, I think they called it, where you track how much you're saving or whatever. And I loved that. I thought that was cool. Yeah, growing up, we did not. So it's interesting. It's complicated. We didn't have a lot of money in my immediate family growing up. My parents we were, definitely below the poverty level in my early years. But now looking back, I realized there was also a lot of privilege in that because my parents chose that, if that makes sense. Growing up, we were poor, and my dad, especially, both my parents were pretty frugal. We only really shopped for clothes at Goodwill. We always bought the like store brand of food, but my dad would only really buy a lot of things on sale. And yeah, when they were building the dome, we lived in a little trailer, which when they moved into it didn't have heat or running water. But yeah, and neither of them worked jobs that made much money. They did data entry for a while for a nonprofit that was where they met. And yeah, there was definitely not a value on money. It was almost like there was some kind of a little bit of some moral superiority almost around. We don't care about material things. We live in our off-the-grid dome home. And we didn't live off the land, so to speak. Like we weren't full-on farmers. We had a little garden. We did have goats that we milked. We had chickens for eggs. There was something around, yeah, we don't value appearance was a big one. At a certain point when I was a kid, I didn't care. But when I reached like 12 or so, I was like, I don't want to buy all my clothes from Goodwill. I want to fit in, especially as a homeschooler. I was like, I was so outside of that sort of world of what's popular, but I was like, I want in. I want to know, what are the kids like? What are we wearing? And there was definitely like an anti-materialistic, anti-appearance, almost like looking down on folks who care about that, or like wearing makeup is kind of, but I was like, no, I actually want all of that. I want to learn all of that. And so I taught myself. I got a bunch of teen magazines from the library and I was like, okay, how do I do makeup? I just figured it out anyway. But
I'm reminded of Rumspringa.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like your little mini Rumspringa.
I feel like whatever we are raised with, often we have to go in the opposite direction for a little while. And then we realized, oh, there was also a lot of value in the original thing. But because we were so out of the mainstream, there was always a bit of an allure of, oh, what's that over there in the mainstream? What are all those people doing? It seems interesting. Yeah, so that was interesting. And now also, so yeah, financially, my grandparents were financially fine, had lots of savings. So now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why my parents were able to do that, because they did have a safety net. They had something to fall back on. We were poor, but we weren't really poor, if that makes sense. Like we were shopping at the Goodwill and buying our groceries on sale. And they did worry about like gas. Like they didn't want to drive a lot because they didn't want to. I think part of it was environmental concern and part of it was gas money. And anyway, so it was just interesting, complicated, I guess, relationship with money. But I think from them, I learned some very basics, which was like for my family, I definitely learned saving money is good and getting into debt is bad. So that was a start. That was pretty much the extent of it. I never learned from my family anything about anything beyond that, like investing or actually planning for retirement or how to get a job that actually pays you enough. My dad's only career advice to me ever was follow your bliss, which is funny because I'm actually doing that now. And it's a great sentiment, but as far as practical guidance, but what do I do? Like if I wanted to get a job and climb a corporate ladder, I had no clue. Like I have no idea. How would I do that? No clue. Yeah. Which I don't think that would have worked for me anyway, but
yeah. And there's so many people, like 9 times out of 10, when you follow your bliss, it doesn't work. So you need to have the tools to understand the backup plan.
Yes, you have to have the strategic thinking and you have to have, it has to be, you follow your bliss is all very well and good, but having the practical tools to back it up is also essential. It's both and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did your parents talk about money with each other? Like, were the conversations mostly positive? Were there any fighting?
I don't remember actually really ever hearing them talk to each other about money. I do remember my mom grumbling a little bit, like mildly, like she wasn't super upset, but just sort of grumbling every month when she would sit down to pay bills. Like that was almost also capitalized, like capital P, capital B, like time to pay bills. And it was the 90s. So it was paper. She was like mailing checks. So I saw that, like I saw my mom paying the bills and not loving it, but she wasn't like super stressed. It was just kind of like, oh, gotta pay bills. Yeah, I don't remember them. Yeah, there weren't really, that I witnessed, fights about money, but there wasn't really discussion about money. Yeah, again, it was more sort of like, yeah, save is good, don't get into debt, and we don't value material things, and that's like superior or better. That's the better path kind of thing.
It is cool that your parents seem to be on the same page in a very effortless type of way, which I think a lot of couples would love to be. So that's cool.
Well, they're not together now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I don't know if they were on the same page as much as I don't know if they really thought about it. My mom has said to me that she's constantly impressed with how intentional I am because she wasn't. Like, she didn't really, I think she honestly didn't think about it. And that probably comes from somewhat of a privileged place. If she didn't have to worry about money growing up, she didn't maybe feel the pressure and need to make a plan. I think they were both a little bit just, yeah, we're just going to follow our bliss and it'll work out. And yeah. But now seeing how my mom has not saved for retirement and doesn't really have a plan, that's definitely contributes to my like desire to make sure I'm super solid, not follow her footsteps in that way. And ultimately, like I am thinking about, I think on the Alan's episode, y'all were talking a bit about kind of like about aging parents, talking to your parents about finance. Are they prepared and everything? And I'm getting to that point of looking at that. My mom actually has Parkinson's and it's going to be a journey. It's going to be rough. And I'm scared, like looking to that, having that on the horizon and knowing that she hasn't really saved much and she'll need to keep working as long as she can, but ultimately she's not going to be able to. And that there will be complex medical things and things are not going to be on an upward trajectory. They're going to be going the other way. And that scares me. And it does make me extra more motivated to make sure I've got my stuff in order and that hopefully I will be able to help somewhat as that is needed. Yeah. So seeing like what not to do also has been part of that experience.
Yeah, for sure. How about your dad? How's he doing?
He's okay. He loves his job. He's going to work forever. He's a librarian, and that was like his dream as a boy growing up in the 50s. But in the 50s, boys weren't librarians. That was a woman type of job, really. And so now so he didn't go in that direction until when he was in his, I would say probably 40s, maybe 50s, but probably 40s. When I was a kid, he went back to school to get his master's in library science and basically has his dream job, like working at the library, reference librarian. He loves it and it's his favorite thing ever. And he's just going to keep doing that forever as long as he possibly can. And yeah, I think he's fine. I don't have a lot of details. We're not close. We're not super in touch a lot. And we definitely don't talk about money stuff, but I'm pretty sure his house is paid off and I think he's going to be fine. And he doesn't spend money. I don't know that he's like on purpose frugal, but I think he just doesn't. His hobbies are working and reading and going on bike rides. He doesn't
super cheap hobbies.
He doesn't travel. He doesn't eat out. He doesn't buy stuff. It's just not what he does. So I think he'll be okay financially, at least. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. So you mentioned your grandparents had some savings, and is this your mom's side or your dad's side?
Both.
Okay. Yeah. And so is there any way that they could help you with your mom, or are they in the picture at all?
They're all passed away at this point. And so they helped my parents a fair bit when I was growing up. Like I did see that. And then, now, so when my mom's one passed away this past February, there was some distribution of her savings and her accounts and stuff. So I know my mom's got some of that now, but I don't know how long that's going to last, especially if she needs complex medical care and stuff. But it definitely has been, for sure, has been a huge help. And that kind of, again, makes me go, oh yeah, this is important. Like I want to be able to have at least the financial side of things solid and sorted out so that when stressful times come and crisis come, at least that doesn't have to be another part of the struggle, to alleviate at least some of the stress so that you can deal with the emotional aspects of it all and not have money be another element. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of deviations are you taking from the things that you learned as a child? And then what kinds of things are you keeping from what you
Ooh,
learned?
good question. Let's see. Deviations has just been educating myself and going pretty in depth on, okay, how does this finance thing work? Personal finance and FI community. And I do want to talk a little bit more about that journey because that's been so fun. And that's why I'm here talking to you. Yeah, avoiding debt and saving, like debt is bad, saving is good, in the simplest of terms. I'm keeping that. My only debt is my home that I bought last year, which I'm super proud of, and it brings me so much joy every day. I side tangent on like home ownership versus renting, because I know that's like a fun, not even debate, but just a fun topic of discussion for FI folks, because everyone has a different take, and some people love renting and it's easier and they just call somebody when something breaks, and some people love real estate. Anyway, my story with that, I absolutely love my home and it brings me a ton of joy. And yes, it is a lot of work and like things do break. But for me, it feels like such a solid sense of stability. And in the world, nothing, that's the thing, is really, it's all an illusion, right? Nothing's really that stable. This could be swept away in a flood, but like there could be fires. So stability is an illusion, but gosh, I enjoy that illusion while I've got it. I rented for many years and I ultimately knew I wanted to have my own home and be a homeowner. And I'm such a home rooted person. So growing up, we lived in the same place for the first 17 years of my life at that Geodesic dome home. Like we never moved. When I left for college, it was my first time living somewhere else. And so home, and like I talked about, that rooted sense of place, that's just core to who I am. I think my personality. My 20s, I was renting, moving around a lot, and it was fine, but it just doesn't suit me. It does not suit me. I will never be a nomadic FI person. Nope. Never say never, but I don't think so. I don't think that's for me. I love to travel, but I love to come home. And then I had two experiences during the pandemic, 2021 and 2022, of I was renting and having both places that happened back to back 2 years in a row. Both places, the landlord saying, "Oh, actually, just at our convenience, you have to move." One of them decided to move his daughter into my apartment where I had lived for 4 years, knew all my neighbors. Rent was super cheap. Like I had no intention of going anywhere. And then he gave me 60 days to find somewhere else. And that was pretty devastating. It was also still pandemic time. That was rough. I was super upset. And so I packed up, moved everything, found a new place, got settled in, found a roommate. And then 6 months later, that homeowner said, "Oh, we're going to actually sell the house. So we'll honor the rest of your lease, but you're going to have to find somewhere else." I was like, damn, like I never want to be in that position ever again, because home is my most important thing. My home is my solid foundation from which everything else grows and from which I I live my life. And if that power is in somebody else's hands, of when I get to have, when I get to live somewhere and when it's, oh, time for you to go, just that, I can't live like that. That was awful. And I never want to go through that again. And so that was instrumental in, it really lit a fire under me. I knew I wanted to buy my own place eventually anyway, but that did light a fire under me to say, I don't ever want to be in that position again. I don't ever want someone else to be able to tell me when I, when I get to have a home and when I don't, because that, yeah, it's so foundational to my personality and when I'm happiest. And I will say, knowing that this is my place and I can live here as long as I want, and I plan to be here for a very long time, I feel so happy. There is a core part of my soul that is content and at peace now. And that feels amazing. It's just, yeah, it's just part of who I am. And so it brings me a lot of joy just being here and like puttering around and taking care of my home and like getting to be here. I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to be. There's nowhere else I want to be. And I plan to be here for a really long time. Again, you never know. Life can take different directions, but I would be shocked if I was here for less than 10 years. And I would not be surprised if I was here for more than 30. And then also, as part of my like FI calculations and stuff. I also did some like mortgage payoff calculations too, and realized that if I could, and so my mortgage rate is 6.25. So not like terrific, but not the worst, just it's high, but that was just when I bought. And so I'm not fortunate to have 3%, and I know that like the average returns, right, of index funds, 7-8-ish%. But I know that typically one of the main sort of lines of advice, right, is invest. If you're going to have a higher return average from investing, do that before you pay off your lower debt, right? And doing the calculations on if I were to pay a little bit extra towards my mortgage every month, I could, if I paid an extra like $300 a month, I could hit FI, like in my investments, right around almost exactly the time that my house would be paid off, around like mid to late 50s. And that sounds really great. Like having a paid off house and not having a house payment and reaching my FI number in investments like at around the same time. I really like the sound of that. Like that just sounds so great. And so I'm not doing that yet. I'm not paying any extra on my mortgage right now because I'm just still getting a handle on what even are my monthly expenses now with having owned a home. It's been about a year. So it's starting to stabilize, and I'm like, okay, this is roughly how much the utilities are. Okay, here's the fixed costs, and it's starting to come into focus of what those are. Because that was a big upheaval from going from renting to just, the more costs of owning a home, the unexpected, not that unexpected because you have to plan for the unexpected, but like when my basement flooded, $5,000 of like drainage work to make sure it doesn't happen again, all the things. And so, my fixed costs have gotten a lot higher, but I've also been able to increase my income with the business significantly. And it's just going to, hopefully, the plan is for it to go up even a little bit more. And things are stabilizing, and I'm learning, okay, here's my fixed costs. Here's what I can plan on.
But I wondered, have you considered with the mortgage payoff? Everybody says, oh, invest instead or pay off the mortgage. There's an either or. But I like the third option where you put that extra payment into an investment account with the intention of paying the house off with that account once it gets. So what I was like, I'm imagining you're paying your mortgage, you get to your FI number, and then you have this third account that also reaches to a certain pivotal point at the same time. And then you use whatever is in that account to pay off the rest of the house. And you might have even extra. Right? So that's just a thought.
That's fun. That's fun to think about. Yeah, I hadn't thought about doing it that way. And the other thing that I should mention about with the house and mortgage costs. So I do have 2 roommates. So I rent out. So my house is really, it's not making me money, but I am defraying a lot of the costs of homeownership by part of it is running the business out of my home. So there's lots of, I can write off some of that tax wise. Some of the expenses of running the home are also business expenses because about a third of the utilities, a third of the garbage pickup, all the things are also, so those are business expenses. And then I also rent the 2 bedrooms upstairs. So the house is technically a 3-bedroom. I've got my bedroom set up downstairs in this finished basement where the classroom space also is. It's separated off by like a gate and a curtain, so the kids are not in my bedroom. And then upstairs, kitchen, living room, and then 2 decent sized bedrooms and 1 bedroom that's technically a bedroom because it does have a closet, but it's pretty tiny. So I rent out the 2 decent sized bedrooms to roommates, and then the middle bedroom is just like shared office / really whatever the roommates want it to be. I'm not attached to that space at all. So I enjoy living with roommates. I've lived alone and I've lived with roommates throughout my life, and I do slightly prefer roommates. There's good things and bad things about both, but I like having good company, and I have it down to a science pretty much of how to find good roommates. I've never had a bad roommate experience. I know what questions to ask. I know what lifestyle, again, it's that strategic thinking kind of part. I'm like, okay, what questions do I need to ask them? How do I get a really good sense of their personality? Because having compatible people in the home is huge. It would be a different experience if I didn't like the people that I lived with, but I always take the time to find the right fit and find somebody who I feel like if I'm coming home that I can feel like, oh yeah, you're here, not, oh, you're here. It just needs to be somebody that I'm like, oh you're in the kitchen. Oh, that's nice. Let's chat a little bit. Or
Familiar. I am very familiar with that feeling of, oh
difference.
God,
Yeah.
you're here.
You're here. Oh, I guess I'll just go in my room then.
Yes, I guess I'll
And that
lock
is not-
my door.
Yeah. And again, home is my most important thing. So I do not want that feeling in my home. I want a feeling of peaceful, cozy, sweet community vibe. And so fun. Yeah.
I'm like exactly the same. It's so funny that you're saying this because Chris and I just recently did like a values exercise just to get on the same page before we got married and stuff like that.
I want to do that.
Yeah, it's really fun. And so we listed our top 5 values, and I made the joke in a prior episode where he was just like, that hasn't come out yet, so you haven't listened to it yet, but it was a previous recording where he was jotting everything down so quickly, and I was like, what are my values? But one of them is a calm, happy home.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris was like, can you elaborate on this? And I was like, yeah, I think I lived in places before that were so stressful that it was like there was a time in New York City where it was so loud all the time that I couldn't even sleep, and my neighbors hated me, and I got pelted in the face with an egg, like in the neighborhood. Like it was awful. And then
That's terrible.
it was so awful. And then in North Carolina, I did have a roommate for a year during COVID that was absolutely horrendous. Every time I saw her name come up on my phone, my heart started to pound.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to go into what she did and stuff, but she was really bad. And when she moved out, because I forced her to move out after her lease was up, so like she wanted to stay, and I was like, no, get out of my house. I celebrated. I was so happy, and it was just like such a relief. And so that to me is just a huge value for me, because I'm like you. I like a home. I will never be a transient person. I was very transient as a kid, like not on the move, not in a trailer or anything, but we moved a lot. And I still have a little bit of that in me, but I would prefer to have a homestead that is my forever home. I haven't found it yet. I love the house that I'm in now. It is too small for the kind of family we want to raise.
Yeah.
It's just a 2-bedroom, 1 little tiny bathroom. And once we have a kid, that's just not going to work. And so we do want to find something a little bit bigger, but once we do that, like that's it. I don't want to move anywhere else. And so I'm so with you.
Thanks for listening to the EverydayFI podcast. If you're loving this show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. You can also find us on YouTube now. Some of the videos actually have our faces. Number 2, please leave a review. I am always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, everyday-fi.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story and connecting with other community members, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And lastly, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everydayfi podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit of support really helps. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.